fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going around the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to him!
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Section's very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go! Oh no!
That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Monday night V8 Supercar Strength Field races where the close of yet another season is quickly approaching. So drivers are desperate to put on some big performances, walk away with some even bigger points as they look to build momentum heading into Season 3 in just 2 weeks' time. It's crazy to think just how fast time has gone as we are almost halfway through the iRacing year, but one thing that is a little more impressive than that is Cooper Webster's season as he looks to be unstoppable with already one hand on the championship trophy. But tonight he could have officially put it out of reach for his competitors, but he hasn't turned up. So it's game on for the title still with just 2 rounds to go. I'm Bo Albert, returning to the commentary booth after quite some time away. But for the gentleman alongside me tonight, it is the ever-experienced Zach Hanlon. And of course, in the director's booth, we have Jay Kennedy doing his thing. But Zach, this brilliant series once again makes its way to Imola, which is a circuit that suits these 650 brake horsepower beasts down to a T.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a lot of the difficulty in driving these cars that makes the racing here so good, as we see so much side-by-side action, and we saw plenty of it last week at Sebring. Some fantastic battles out on track, and Imola's just another one of those places where, as you said, Bo, especially in these V8 supercars, it's just great racing. I think not too much, downforce stuff. These cars don't have much downforce to begin with, but just being on the edge of grip in so many different places means that there's a lot more susceptibility for mistakes, and that keeps the pack a lot closer together. So it's going to be really critical for a lot of guys tonight in their qualifying to make sure that they're nice and high in the order so that they don't get stuck in any battles further down that might impede the total progression of their race.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, starting high on the grid, of course, the opening lap can be very chaotic around Imola with that very sharp first few corners. Of course, the first 2 sections of corners of this track are both tight chicanes, which is not what you want. But for Brett Loxton, he's got exactly what you want right now, which is clear track and current pole position. And actually, he's done his 2 lap times now, and both were good enough for pole position. But unfortunately for him, he's not running away with it just like that might sound like. So the top 3 covered by just 1/10 of a second as Marlon McMullen moves himself into the top 6 and Greg Sharp into the top 12.
Yeah, very close up at the top of the timesheets right now, and Brady Myers has just jumped himself up into position number 2 ahead of his teammate Jackson Suslan-Harlow. So that's a very nice performance by Brady, who, as a very experienced driver, seen him put in some great performances, and I'm really liking the look of this top 5 in fact, this top 10 at the moment is very good at the moment. You got Brett Loxton, Brady Myers, Jackson Suslan-Harlow, Wayne Burke, all fantastic drivers in very hard races. Jack Boyd, the man looking to take this championship away from young Cooper Webster as well, sitting inside that top 6. And Brendan Hobson, man, I was just about to mention, he's actually just put himself up into position number 5, so he gets a jump up in his mention. But there's a really good selection of drivers, especially in this top 10 right now, that should definitely provide some great racing. And looking further down the field, we've also got a couple of drivers we'd expect to maybe come through the field as well. Mitchell McLeod always has a bit of a charge up through the field, so it's going to be a very interesting race this evening.
Yeah, definitely will be. And It is going to be a pretty long one for the drivers as well. It's going to be a race distance of just under 1 hour, and it's going to feature a pit stop as well. So for these drivers, as you can see, Steve Jansen on track at the moment, it's going to be a very long race, and we're going from sunset all the way down towards the morning, so the sun will come up at some point during this race, which should look pretty darn cool, as well as we can see the 23 car showing just how easy it is to lose the car on so many of the elevation changes around this circuit. And Zach, the V8 Supercar, when you're trying to get traction on an uphill section, just how difficult can it be?
Oh, especially when you're turning, it's incredibly difficult. I mean, the rear wheels of these cars are locked together. So if the outside one is spinning at 100, the inside one is spinning at 100, which means that it's very difficult to put down the power as efficiently as possible. You have to make the car as straight as you possibly can when you're trying to get your maximum power output onto the ground in these cars. And when you're having that weight taken off the rear as you're coming over the crest of a hill and you're turning at the same time, it's virtually impossible. You have to really gingerly walk these things around. And with all those elevation changes here at Imola, it is definitely going to be exciting to see. Just having a look at some of our track stats for you now, ladies and gentlemen. Currently 24 degrees here at Imola. Track time is 5:50 a.m. So gladly, none of these guys had to wake up that early to make this race. Dare say we'd see a couple of unhappy faces down on the grid, but Brett Loxton will not have any sort of frown on his brow. He's going to be starting from position number 1 in this evening's race, alongside Brady Myers for TTL Esports in second position. Jackson Susan-Harlow, his teammate, will follow closely in position number 3. They have Wayne Burke for company in 4th position. Brenton Hobson for Synergy Sim Racing starts out of 5th alongside Jack Boyd in the Golden Road Motorsports machine, looking to get as many championship points as he possibly can this evening. Marlon McMullen starting from position number 7. Corey Preston will start out of position number 8. Michael Taliancic in P9 for Pursuit Sim Racing, and Job Stewart in Pursuit Sim Racing colours also will round out the top 10.
The 6th row of the grid belongs to Blake Purdy for Pursuit Sim Racing and Brian Borg as well. Greg Sharp and Damien Johnston are 13th and 14th respectively, with Dominic Ferreras making his way into the top 15 on the grid. Zach Baker rolls off from 16th on the grid, with Mario Vlasic, Matt Morris, Steve Jansen and Mihail Ladishov your top 20, with Mitch McLeod being the only driver from that point on actually setting a qualifying time, with Matt Stratford and Kai Allen unfortunately not getting a time on the board, which could prove costly in this race when it goes green in just 15 seconds time. Maybe a bit shorter as the drivers look to all get themselves onto the grid for what is going to be a very tricky run into turn number 1. It's a long run as well, as the revs will rise for round number 11 here at Autodromo Internazionale of Imola, and we are underway as the 23 V8 Supercars make their way down into turn number 1. It's a great start from the outside of the front row there for the TTL Esports driver. Brady Myers tries to make it happen, but of course it's going to be the advantage on the inside to Brett Loxton side by side already as they funnel their way through the 23 cars, making their way through this very tricky opening section of corners, and it's still on for your race lead. Looks like mostly everyone has made their way through pretty cleanly, which is great to see, but the battle for the lead rages on into the Variante Villeneuve chicane, and you can see there's contacts there, which is also tight there for Brady Myers. Keeps it on the road, only just ahead of his teammate, who was looking very vicious, but not as vicious as Wayne Burke. Throws it up the inside into the Tosa hairpin, and that's going to be all too easy if he can get the traction, which he looks like he does. It's a good move there from Wayne Burke. Nice and opportunistic, and splits the TTL cars.
Yeah, he read that really well. He knew Harlow wasn't going to go attacking his teammate who was trying to challenge for the lead, and that might have put Harlow in a really compromising position there. Wayne Burke taking full advantage of that TTL car, just not possibly going into that harder as possibly as he possibly could, as we see now coming through number 10 now. Very difficult corner, all the cars coming up the hill. Brett Loxton has got a little bit of a gap now, doesn't have to worry about an immediate attack, but there's quite a few cars running nose to tail as we come towards the end of the first lap here. People are just going to take it pretty easy, I imagine, throughout these first couple laps, although whenever we say that, it completely turns out to be the opposite. But it is a longer race this evening, and the pit stops are not going to be happening until later on expecting the track temperatures to rise because it is so early in the morning, and they might have to think about tyres later, but it's just important to get a clean start to this race, get the rhythm going, and a lot of action is going to be seen down into turn 1 with the big draft down this front straight here.
Yeah, absolutely, but it looks like most people are playing it pretty nice for this opening lap, which is good to see, trying to settle into a rhythm, just like you said, and just fall into their pace delta and make their way forward if they possibly can. But like you said, it's all about looking after tyres. There's a big moment for Dominic Ferreras just in the mid-pack there, almost lost it out of the first chicane. So even though the conditions are pretty cool, which is pretty favourable to these V8 supercars, it's not making life too easy, and he's now coming under pressure from Mario Vlasic, who's not able to make a move happen. But it proves these conditions, although they're okay for these cars, they can still very easily bite the drivers if they're not paying attention 100% of the time. But for our front 4 cars at the moment of Loxton, Brady Myers, Wayne Burke, and Jackson Suslin-Harlow, they've got a good start, breaking away a little bit now from Jack Boyd, who of course is second in the championship. No Cooper Webster tonight, so he's got a great opportunity to score some points. But right now, he has to make sure he goes for that train in front.
Yeah, and the strength of field is actually particularly strong this evening. We're looking at 37.55 is the strength of field this evening. So some really good championship points on offer for Jack Boyd. He really just needs to sit behind this lead pack here. Hope that he can kind of tuck in underneath them and try and make some strategy work, I think would be the best thing. It doesn't seem like he's got the absolute pace to be running at the front of this field right there, although even after 2 laps, he's still holding in there pretty well. So be interesting to see how he fares throughout this race. Just noticed a little bit of possible damage to the rear of Brett Loxton's car on the right rear quarter there. Just a little bit of that panel not looking as ripe as it could. And it looks like Brady Myers is having a little bit of a look down into turn 1, just showing the nose and letting Brett Loxton know that he wouldn't mind getting a little bit of a hurry up, and probably wants to try and make a bit of a breakaway for the lead here. Looking very strong in that first lap, and might try and make something work in the near future.
Yeah, well, absolutely, but unfortunately a breakaway is just not happening at the moment for him. And in fact, like you mentioned before, with the big slipstream that you do get down the front straight, it was actually the last car in this pack who had the fastest lap last time around, which was Jackson Suslin-Harlow with a 43.2, some 0.3 of a second quicker than Loxton, who currently leads this pack. So for Loxton, breakaway is not going to happen, and that little damage that you did mention as well on the rear of his car could be hurting his straight line just a little bit. But if you're going to have damage anyway, you'd rather it on the rear of the car than the front, as they make their way through the gorgeous Aqua Minerale section of corners, which is so much fun to drive when you get it right, but an absolute nightmare when you do find yourself getting it wrong. But the front pack is still keeping it nice and clean at the moment, which is good to see, and most of the pack is just starting to spread out. So it's a nice calm start to the track, the race, apart from for Zach Baker, who runs off of Aqua Minerale just a little bit, and I think is going to have to serve a slowdown penalty.
Yeah, I'll have to admit, Bo, I probably hit Aqua Minerale a lot less times than I would like to just right. In fact, I'm not sure I've actually hit that corner to my satisfaction in any way, shape or form, but Zach Baker definitely not hitting that to his standards, and will suffer ever so slightly because of that. Ferraris has just lost a spot there too. It looks like Mario Vlasic in that red V8 there, making his way down the front straight, and Ferraris maybe having to put up a bit of a defensive game here from Damien Johnston.
It could be on for your race lead here. It could be. There's a bit of a bad exit there for Brett Loxton. You can see Myers just pulled out a little bit. He actually lifted off a bit there. He could have made a lot more of an attempt there, but decided not to, as Loxton made a little bit of a meal of that first corner, but does get away with it. But not going to be also lucky into Tosa, as a big move there for Brady Myers. Almost got to the back bumper of Loxton's car once more, and it was actually very lucky in the end not to lose a spot to Wayne Burke, who got his nose in there as well. So out of nowhere, one missed corner for Brett Loxton, and it all goes a little bit wrong, as is going on in the back of the pack as well. Mitch McLeod side by side into Tosa as well, and he's lost a bunch of spots there as well. So this little group for last and first is both kicking off at the moment.
Yeah, and this pack up at the front here is going to be very dangerous, because you've got 4 very aggressive drivers here. And you feel like as soon as something kicks off, it's all just going to absolutely erupt, as we see a nice move there from Matt Morris going up the inside of Steve Jansen into Aqua Minerale. And that was a very nice move there. as we head back to the front pack. But yeah, as I was just saying, these guys, if if there's a small mistake here from Brady or Brett, that could really turn this pack into a bit of a dogfight, and you could see these positions swap around very, very quickly. And just feels like it's getting to that sort of tipping point. Brady really feels like he wants to get a move on here, just can't get past. But Wayne Burke also behind, I mean, he will take anything you throw at him. And if you open the door even just gently, he will barge himself through. So these guys ahead of him know that, and they're not going to be opening themselves up as much as they can. But at the same time, Brady is really looking for a way to get past Brett Loxton right now. And he does seem to have a little bit more pace in that car right now, it does have to be said. Looks like the car's turning a lot stronger, and he's just got a lot more confidence in that car into this hairpin once again, looking very strong, looking for the good exit as he tries to get the power down. And that's Corey Preston going for a bit of a early apex comparatively to Brenton Hobson there, who's sitting in his favorite position at the moment. So we just check in on Brady Myers there, not able to get something done this time around. I think it's going to have to be pretty unexpected. He's probably going to have to go for a move that's going to catch Brett out here by surprise.
Yeah, and sometimes at Imola, that is an option for you because there are so many places you can potentially make a pass, but only maybe one or two legitimate ones. But if it comes desperate, he really wants to find a way through. There are places you can make a move, just like this next section of corners at Piratella, but you have to make sure you get that run through that chicane just there, and he wasn't able to achieve that on this lap. And well, we did say the TTL car does look a little stronger at the moment, but for Jackson Susel Harlow, just falling away a little bit on this pack. But we know he's got very strong pace. We know how quick of a driver he is. So I'm wondering if he is just trying to save a little bit of tyres right now while the rest all scrap it out. As Brenton Hobson finds himself trying to make a move and get himself past Jack Boyd, who has fallen back once again as well. And not able to do it in the final corner, but we'll see how powerful the slipstream is. Of course, the winds are only 12 kilometers an hour, but that won't stop Brenton Hobson because half of 12 is sick, and he wants to go for it, but just not able to at turn number 1. But we know how aggressive Brenton Hobson can be, and that is a battle to watch in the next few laps.
As we've got 4 cars here coming down the front straight, and this is much further down the field, but just as intense as up the front, and a car's going to have to take onto the grass there, and that's Steve Jansen, who, he got kind of run out of room there and probably took the most sensible option that was put in front of him. So nice driving there from Steve Jansen as we just get a modem simulation replay here of that incident. You can see the cars up ahead of him just weaving across the track, and he's tried to go down the outside here, and yeah, that was very, very close, but nicely held there by Steve Jansen. He will continue on. That battle up for 5th, 6th, and 7th at the moment, looking very interesting. Corey Preston once again very much on the heels of Brenton Hobson, might go for a move down into the chicane. Not going to happen this time. That chicane, you may be surprised with the overtakes you can actually do there. I remember last time we were here in the V8 Supercars, I'm going to regret remembering who it was, but someone put an absolutely sensational move through that chicane that most of us up in here in the booth didn't even think was possible. So I'd really like to, hopefully we'll see someone pulling out some magic through there again. Unfortunately for Corey Preston, not able to make anything work this time by. And Brenton Hobson really applying some pressure to Jack Boyd now. And Jack's got to... This isn't really not the position he wants to be in for his championship hopes, as Brenton now goes to the outside, barely squeezes himself into the 1-car gap that's there, brakes a little bit early, tucks himself back in, makes sure he gets the smooth runs through that section there. And Jack Boyd was not so smooth. He was a little bit late to the throttle as he came through the second part of that, but he was just strong enough to keep himself ahead of Brenton for the time being. But Brenton's still right there as they come into the hairpin section. Not going to do anything on this time by, just still putting around behind the Gone Rogue Motorsports machine. And that battle up at the front has not lost its intensity by any means so far.
No, not at all. And again on that lap, Loxton just a little bit too wide through that second chicane, and almost made an opportunity for Brady Myers into the Tosa hairpin. But Brady not quite feeling that brave just yet on lap number 7. So still a long way to go in this race. You don't have to do anything too aggressive just at this start. because there's no points for leading on the 7th lap, but there is for leading the 34th. So for Brady, just going to keep ticking around at the moment and hope something or an opportunity does appear. But for Jack Boyd, he has to be careful at the moment, because the more he does slow himself and the rest of the pack up, Marlon McMullen and Michael Taliantich are just slowly beginning to form onto the back of their pack. 4/10 of a second was the gain for them last time around. So for Jack Boyd, on a day where he really needs to make an impact on this championship, it's just going a little bit south at the moment.
Yeah, the pace just isn't there in that Gone Rogue Motorsports machine at the moment, and he definitely doesn't want another 2 cars joining into that battle. But as you said, Bo, it is very much a reality, and any more steaming charges from Mr. Hobson are going to put them even closer to the clutches of that scenario becoming a reality as they go side by side into turn number 1. Jack Boyd on the outside. Oh, they're both off, and that is very unfortunate. They're surely both going to have slowdown penalties from that they're going to have to clear.
Big changes up at the front, because all of a sudden Myers gets himself a slowdown, drops behind Wayne Burke and Jackson Harlow as well. So that's all gone off, as well as the pack in front. So out of nowhere, lap 8 has completely changed it up. And we have 2 separate moves, as we'll get a Motum Simulation replay up on screen now. So we're looking at the battle between Brent and Hobson now. And of course, the driver of Jack Boyd, as you can see, going into the first hairpin, both locking it up. Corey Preston almost followed them in as well, and was very lucky not to follow them. So that was their issue. And then, of course, Brady Myers going too fast in the turn number 1, picking up that slowdown and dropping behind his teammates as well. So out of nowhere, the race has changed on its head. And we said earlier, Zach, Loxton needed to make a gap. Well, now he's got the best opportunity to make one.
Yeah, he's got a really good opportunity right now. And I think that unfortunately for Brett, I just don't think he has the speed in the car right now to really make that happen. He's got a fairly sizable gap out to Wayne Burke now, but I think Wayne was definitely looking like he had some pace in his car, and I would not put it past him to be closing that gap up fairly quickly. I think Wayne probably doing a little bit similar to what Harlow was doing, and just conserving a little bit of fuel just while they sat behind those 2 guys who were fighting for the lead, because, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, the lead is what all these guys are looking for, and I'm sure Wayne would have been thinking about that while he was sitting in behind those guys previously. And that is Suzlin Harlow letting his teammate Brady Myers past once again. So obviously Brady is the stronger of the 2 drivers at the moment, and they want to make sure that they can have a TTL car sitting on the top step of the podium this evening. So Brady is going to push that charge home for the team, as we now see Steve Jansen and Mitchell McLeod going side by side into turn number 1. Very early on the brakes for Mitchell, allows him to get a clean run through the chicane, and you can just see the amount of speed that grants him through the middle of that corner. And on the exit, he's going to have a go, but Steve Jansen's not going to give it up. Going to try and hold it tough side by side through turns 7 and 8 there, but unfortunately not good enough today for Steve Jansen. And Mitchell McLeod will slide his way up into position. Having a look now at Dominic Ferraris and Matt Morris in the Velocity Sim Sports Magazine car. He's running pretty well there, up in 16th position at the moment, up a couple of spots from where he started, and continuing to push forward, but coming under a fair bit of pressure there is Matt Morris. We jump now back up to 7th and 8th. Jack Boyd and Brendan Hobson still having a go at it, and Brendan Hobson really looking to get this move done, but just can't make it work. See if he has any more ammunition as they come down into turn 1. Neither of those guys last time really looked like they were going to make the corner as they came down into turn 1, so we'll have to see if they've both got braking capacity. Brendan Hobson, though, way too far back this time to be having an attempt on the Gone Rogue Motorsports machine, and just got a couple of cars up ahead of them as well. So Marlon McMullen and Corey Preston starting to chase down the pack up ahead of them, although not making much inroads into that at the moment. And I suspect that we might see a little bit of a battle here, because McMullen is very much looking keen on the back of Corey Preston and has been chasing and catching this pack that he's just gotten past in recent laps.
Yeah, well, we all know just how quick Marlon McMullen can be. Of course, a multiple-time champion of this series himself. But taking a bit of a step back in recent seasons and just decided to maybe do things a bit more for fun or just not put as much pressure on himself for whatever reason. But nonetheless, Corey Preston was one of those drivers who would always battle for the championship, and they found themselves on track once again. And Corey qualified down in 8th, moved himself up into 5th now, so already 3 spots up, as have the likes of Mario Vlasic and Matt Morris and Matt Stratford. So if your name's Matt, you're moving up through the field at the moment, which is good news for them. But for Corey Preston, not able to break away, and like you said, it is bringing Jack Boyd now into this group as well, and he's of course bringing Brenton Hobson, who has very good pace, and looks like he is slightly quicker than Jack Boyd overall, but not able to make any moves happen as the front guys are closing up a little bit once again, as Wayne Burke last him around 0.2 of a second quicker than Brett Loxton. We'll see him much faster on this lap and see if he continues his trend, and that's another 0.3 of a second there for Wayne Burke. So he's got his way back onto the back of Brett Loxton, but Brady Myers and Jackson Suzlin-Harlow not quite having the same amount of luck as, all of a sudden it's gone wrong for Mitch McLeod, and the driver he was battling, that was Steve Jansen in the privateer car. They've gone for a little bit of a moment there, and we'll see what happens there on this Motum simulation replay. It was a bold move up the inside from Mitch McLeod. You can see not really got the overlap at this point, sends it down the inside, and watch Steve Jansen's rear tyres all of a sudden just pinches it all by himself, and around he goes. No contact made, nothing wrong by Mitch McLeod. Both going a little bit too aggressive, as it is currently on for our race lead, as Brett Loxton trying to maximize every little bit of circuit he can, and actually taking a very tight line there through there at the moment, but not happening as Corey Preston now. We go back to that battle for 5th, and you can see Marlon McMullen not having an easy time keeping Jack Boyd behind, and Jack wants to get a little bit redemption. He was holding that 5th spot earlier in the race, and of course had that moment at turn number 1 where it all went a little bit wrong. Well, he's making a charge, and he has hunted down McMullen over the last few laps. And it has to be said that it should be a fairly simple overtake with the pace advantage he has at the moment. But where is the best place to do it without making something go a little wrong and allowing Brenton Hobson finally to get ahead of him?
Yeah, everything's a bit of a high-risk maneuver around here at Imola. He's going to have to hope that he can maybe pull off a bit of a double draft here and do a 2-for-1 on McMullen and Preston. That'd be ideal for him, but he's got to be in the right place at the right time. He's got some good car position right now. Probably wanted to be 1 or 2 car lengths closer, but this is a good run here for McMullen, and Jack Boyd may be able to open himself up an opportunity out of what is about to happen here. Side by side are Marlon McMullen and Corey Preston as they come down to turn 1 here at Imola. Both cars, oh, there's a bit of contact! And that is what I was talking about. Here is an opportunity for Jack Boyd. Is it an opportunity, though? He squeezed himself just through down the inside of Corey Preston. That's going to be great if he can make it stick, but he's going to have to hold it tough through this next section of corners. And Corey Preston has yielded as they come on the entry into a corner. So fantastic. And a big slide from Corey on the exit of that corner. Be careful not to run into the back of Jack, Corey. It's all gone wrong for Corey Preston. 3 positions in 3 corners he has lost. And just getting a little bit ahead of himself and tripping himself up there was Corey Preston. We'll get a Modem simulation replay for you of that one and some exciting racing. So here we see Marlon McMullen pulling up alongside Corey Preston. They both very committed on the brakes, in the braking zone into turn number 1, side by side, pretty much all the way through. A little bit of a wiggle.
And it's still on for them guys as well, because Jack Boyd has overshot Aqua Minerale in that position he gains, or had on Taliancic, and that he gained on Preston, has just gone down the toilet once again. So Jack Boyd having a nightmare of a race. It's just not going well for him. You can see the replay there, just gets a wheel in the grass and slides his way through. So for Jack Boyd, every time an opportunity comes up for himself during this race, it just goes wrong, and he cannot hold on to these spots at the moment, which is a horrible thing for him. He's gone down 3 spots now, and he's going to have to work over this all over again. So this is not what he needs, but what can you do? You can see on board there, and as we move to our race leaders, as Brett Loxton still got control of the race, but Brady Myers has managed to claw his way back towards this front pack, 0.2 of a second per lap, as Wayne Burke gets a little bit of sideways action going on through that first chicane. But for these guys, they are so much more patient than that battle pack behind, and that is why their gap between this pack and Marlon McMullen's pack is now over 7 seconds.
Yeah, that's pretty There was some pretty wild stuff going on for Wayne Burke as he was coming out of the first section of corners there. He's really trying to get the power down as early as possible in his machine. And Corey Preston, his car's just looking a little bit wayward at the moment. Some very poor off-throttle oversteer into the entry of the hairpin there. Had to really grab that at the midpoint of the corner and basically kill all of his speed. And now Jack Boyd once again is looking to make his way past Corey Preston, whose car is starting to fade. And you can just see how much more confident Jack is compared to Corey into Aqua Minerale there. And he is up side by side already. Maybe go for a move round the outside if he's brave and deep enough. But probably a wiser decision to not have that move performed this time around for Jack Boyd. We see here Wayne Burke. This could be it. A nice run for Wayne out of the final corner. This has got overtake written all over it, ladies and gentlemen. He's in the perfect position for a nice draft here. We're going to see which way he decides to go. Brett currently... Oh, and that's interesting. Wayne's actually decided to get out of the throttle well early there and not go for the move on Brett Loxton at all. And I've got a fair bit of racing experience. I can tell you he could have definitely gone for it if he wanted to there. The man who is going to try and go for it regardless is Jack Boyd, who's going to try and work himself through on Corey Preston, trying to work the rear of that car and force his opponent into a position he doesn't want to run. He's holding it there for the time being is Corey Preston. Jack going for a little dive down the inside early on the brakes so that he doesn't rear into his or ram his competitor there, and forcing Corey to just run on the absolute ragged edge and make a mistake. It's not happening for him at the moment. A little bit of a push on the mid corner there, but both cars keeping it nice and straight as they come out of the hairpin, and some good racing between those guys.
Yeah, it was, and you could see no millimeter was given between the two drivers. They were trying everything they could, but Jack Boyd does not get the position this time around. And well, it's interesting what we saw into turn one with Wayne Burke as well, because it tells us everything we need to know about his race strategy. He doesn't care about leading right now. He just wants to lead when the pit stops are done and over, which we have to sort of come back to them a little bit, because the pit window for fuel will be opening relatively soon. A lot of drivers usually like to go a little bit further past the halfway mark before their first pit stop, but the pit window would now officially be open. You would be able to make it home, so if anyone's feeling a little bit brave, they could make their way in. But the smart call right now for our top four at least is definitely to stay out, keep ticking the laps down, and make sure they're doing what they're doing, because of course they are still pulling away from the pack behind, which has settled down considerably, apart from Corey Preston and Jack Boyd, who are definitely not settling down at all. Side by side down the straight that is not a straight at all, and we'll see who gets the advantage. It's going to be who's latest on the brakes, because Corey Preston should be able to just about keep an overlap, but he's going to lose the overlap, it looks like, and might have to concede. He's late on the brakes, he's still trying it, he wants to force the issue, but you have to know when it's game over, and for Corey Preston, it is indeed game over. Jack Boyd finally gets that position off Corey Preston. Eyes forward to Michael Taliancic now, who's still a long way up the road.
Yeah, but that's lost him a massive amount of time being in that battle. He's already a good 2 seconds. Whoa, and that's Dominic Ferraris, who's had a big off in his EXG Motorsports car. We'll get a modem simulation replay of just exactly what occurred there. So let's here we are on the main straight here. We've got Matt Stratford sitting just behind here in the MF Racing car, and looks like Dominic's quite low down on straight line speed, and he's just gone off onto the grass there all on his own accord, and that is hard contact with the wall, and that will put a big dampener on his day in terms of result. We head back up to the front of the pack. Brady Myers has closed right up onto Wayne Burke now, so the intensity and the pressure between these top three cars has not dissipated in the 15 laps that we have been running so far. And now we have TTL, One Performance Racing, and Zuva Racing up at the front of this field, all looking to take home the top spot of the podium. We're just having a look now at a couple of cars that have decided to bite the board. So Bo was just talking about the pit window being open. Well, there are a couple of drivers who have decided that the time for open is now, and they are coming in to get full service to the end of this race. Now, this is definitely not the worst strategy here. We've seen the undercut work massively. Jack Boyd, noticeably one of the people who's coming into the pits first, and he's a man that needs to make up a lot of positions, and this could well go his way. Track temperatures are still fairly cold, but the I suppose the ultimate lap time is actually still very good compared to what they started on. Got top 3 at the moment. Brett Loxton last time round of 43.7. His best lap of this race of 43.4. So these tyres are actually holding up very well. Although you might not look at Corey Preston's car and say that, given the amount that he's been sliding around these last couple of laps. However, the lap times have not dissipated too much, so this undercut may not be as effective as we would see at other tracks.
Yeah, no, not at all. I'm very surprised by the lap times at the moment. And Wayne Burke still continuing to save so much fuel at the moment, so it's clearly his strategy to go as long as he can, or at least just make sure he can short fill the car. As here we go, the first of our top 4 dive in, and I've got to be honest, of all the top guys to come in, I probably wasn't expecting Brady to be the first in. I thought maybe Jackson Susan Harlow, of course, who has been sitting at the back, to maybe jump in first, but for Brady, this could be a very bold call. He could make his way with the undercut quite some way ahead, as the rest of the cars do seem to be coming in as well. The likes of Marlon McMullen and Job Stewart also diving in on this 17th lap of the race. So interesting to see, but for Wayne Burke, he's going to be the real talking point of where he decides to come in. Does he elect to go 1 lap longer than Brett Loxton and try and extend his margin even more in clean air? Or does he come in at the same time and just make sure he gets that pass done in the pits?
Yeah, I think probably would be better for him to pit at the same time as Brett, but I don't think it's with the differences in lap time at the moment. I think that if he has an extra 2 odd seconds on any of his competitors on fuel, it's not really going to make a difference so long as he comes in a lap either side. I think that he should pretty much have the job done, and being in the position that he is, I think that he's looking very strong for the race win today. So just seeing a couple more cars coming off the pit lane now. This is Brenton Hobson we're just looking at, who's coming round very quickly on Marlon McMullen. Now, these guys were fighting for position just before the pit stops there, so you can see that the undercut is not necessarily going to work for people here today. So having a look now at Brett Loxton, Wayne Burke, just a 1/10 of a second, and if there was going to be a time to pit, this would be a good time. You're as close as... Oh, and he's changed his mind. So he's gone for the complete opposite of what Brett Loxton has done there. So Brett and Suslin Harlow now are both in the pit lane, and looked like Wayne actually even had to jump on the anchors a little bit to ensure that he didn't hit Brett there. So that would have cost him probably at least 2-3 tenths of a second by the time he got down to the end of the straight there. So probably not the best decision. I probably would have gone in with Brett if I was Wayne, but Wayne's got his strategy and his race all sorted, and he's going to continue circulating until he is happy to bring that car in. Maybe he's been saving some pace and is waiting to unleash it until this very moment. We'll have to see. Having a look now on screen at Brenton Hobson and Marlon McMullen, who are battling after they've just both come out of the pits, albeit a lap difference between the two.
Jackson's managed to jump Brett in the pit, so out of nowhere, we've had a net change of position once again, and I did say that Jackson has just been sitting at the back of this pack all the time, and out of nowhere, actually, Brady Myers has jumped a lot of them by a considerable margin. That is a pretty solid margin for Brady Myers there, and look at Loxton, and Loxton manages to get back past into turn number 1, so Jackson did get that move done in the pit stops, but loses it immediately as we go to look at our pit stop times at the moment, and it was a considerably shorter stop there, almost in the range of 2 seconds quicker for Brady Myers, so it's no wonder why he's managed to jump the entire field here. But we'll see what happens with Wayne Burke, because he's coming to the final corner now. Does he elect to come into the pits? Of course he does. So Wayne Burke in the pits, as we do have a driver off at the moment, which is not ideal. We'll get a motum simulation replay and see just what has happened to Corey Preston. You can see braking for turn 1, and just did not see Job Stewart because he was there, and that's a vicious rotation. And, well, the Pursuit Sim Racing car rolls back onto the circuit in a pretty dangerous position, but not his fault. But that rejoin was a little hairy for Brian Borg.
Yeah, that was a very awkward situation for everyone involved. Just checking out how Brian got past. I think that was Greg Sharp there as well, and then what he had to go through. Oh yeah, very nice heads-up driving there from Brian Borg, seeing exactly what was going on, and make sure that he got out of the way nice and early. So we will stay now with Wayne Burke in the one performance racing car, and that is a considerably faster stop than anybody. At least a second on Brady Myers, and 3 seconds over Brett Loxton. So how is this going to go? He's got the gap. Is it going to be enough? I don't think it is. It's going to be side by side into turn one, surely, but it's not, because Brady Myers has made it work. He has pushed his absolute limits on his laps out of the pits, and he has made the move for the lead in fantastic style. Now Wayne Burke, he's got to push now and use all that available fuel to the end of this race to try and reclaim that race lead.
Yeah, absolutely. That it could be race changing for Wayne Burke. We thought he was going to come out in front by a country mile, but Brady Myers has just trumped the entire field, of course, with his very short stop. But I do think Brady was pushing very hard at the start of the race and having a 2-second faster pit stop than Brett Loxton and Jackson Susel and Harlow as well. I would be a little worried if I was Brady Myers' fuel tank right now, because I've got a feeling he would have short fueled just a little bit for track position, and now he might have to fuel save a bit. So even though Brady's got the lead right now, I don't think this is even close to done just yet, and Wayne Burke is going to keep on pushing as Corey Preston actually gets his way past Job Stewart, and thankfully it's a lot cleaner this time around. But that is some pretty poor defense, I have to say, from Corey Preston on the exit. But nonetheless, we'll ignore the bad parts, we'll enjoy the good parts, because Corey Preston will see this move here coming into the toaster hairpin and just down the inside, very committed, and makes it work. But a bit of aggressive weaving on this straight coming up, so Corey Preston clearly not too impressed with Job Stewart, and I'm really not too sure that incident was Job Stewart's fault at all.
No, I mean, it seemed to me when they had their contact at turn one that Corey was very slow. You know, you might even say not even up to race pace, but anyway, that's job done for him, and he will try and reclaim from this race what he can after a couple of unfortunate incidents. Back up to the front, the gap remains at half a second between Brady Myers and Wayne Burke. I'm interested to see the lap times of Brett Loxton and Jackson Susel and Harlow as well, because they're in a little bit of a battle, which might be impeding them just a little bit, but they are not far off the pace of these guys at all. And Brady Myers did do the fastest lap of the race, technically speaking, but not, it won't be officially counted because I think he must have gotten an off track on there. So he is flying, albeit using a little bit more of the road than is given to him at this stage. But nonetheless, 43.130 is a very fast lap, and the fastest that we have seen on the timing sheet so far. So you can tell just how much he's pushing. Difficult to say if he's going to have the fuel to make it to the end of this race, and we will have to see. He did come in a lap earlier than Wayne, so he may have had a couple of litres left in the tank still. And my goodness, Job Stewart, that was very lucky that he was able to keep that off the wall there and actually pretty much keep it on the grey stuff the entire time. So unfortunate mistake there for Job Stewart. Luckily though, he's able to gather that all back up. And Wayne Burke got a really nice run out of the final corner now. I don't think he'll be holding off any moves now as we're getting into the second stage of this race. And it is on for the lead. He's going to go for a move down the inside. It's covered off by Brady very heavily as they come down into turn one. And luckily for Wayne, he left himself enough room to brake there that they didn't get involved in too much of an incident. Michael Taliancic weaving back in under Jack Boyd, who's just gone past him in the Gone Road Motorsports machine and makes his way back up into 7th position. But this battle up the front is
here we go.
to get...
Oh, that's a massive move up the inside of Tosa. Uses all of the curb and a little bit more available. But it's still going to be a slight overlap on the exit for Brady. But he has to concede. He doesn't have it right now because Wayne Burke set the fastest lap of the race last time around. Almost contact coming into this fast left-hander. They are absolutely nudging each other at the moment through this fast section of corners. And Brady definitely not too impressed with that move because it was very late by Wayne Burke, but he made it work. No contact at all. Just a very bold move, very aggressive, but he made it happen. But we will get a replay up on screen of more of the action happening on circuit because Kai Allen, well, I don't think he's going to have a very good day. You can see going through that left-hander now. We'll see what has happened to him. He's got a wheel on the grass there, another wheel on the grass there. So maybe just a little bit uncomfortable with the Ford at this point in the drive we don't normally see. And that is very easy to do, just to understeer wide, and I think he's just had enough for the day. Of course, these cars are so tricky. There is such a development curve in these cars. They are so unique to any other car on the service that if you want to be quick in this car, Zach, you really do have to dedicate so much time and effort.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty good proof of that, I think. You know, I mean, I don't like to push my own buttons too much, but I don't think I'm too slow in a GT car. But if you put me in one of these things, I'm absolutely garbage. And I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to drive one of these things, and it does not work. And Wayne Burke is still maybe trying to learn a thing or two because he's had a massive moment coming out of the chicane, and that's going to open it up for Brady Myers. Maybe he stuck his nose in there. He might even give him a little bit of a push through the chicane here. Not able to make it work. Will he go for the late move that Wayne put on him just before? He will not. And this is allowing the two cars behind to possibly form the 4-car train we had before, albeit in a almost completely different order, unfortunately. For Harlow, he has been at the tail end this entire time, but with the pace all these guys are showing at the moment, that could change very soon with him actually being the fastest car on track last time by. So, but just having a look now with Brady Myers as he's chasing One Performance Racing's Wayne Burke. But this 4-car battle at the front has not relented throughout this race, and it is starting to close up once again.
Yeah, it certainly is. This is getting very interesting all around the circuit at the moment. Brady Myers looks so threatening at the moment. Could make it happen into this final corner, and he's got it there. He's just losing the rear brakes a little bit. Manages to pull it up without adding any dent into the One Performance Racing Holden Commodore. But that was so close for Brady Myers there. And you did mention that it is bringing the two cars behind, Loxton and Jackson Susel and Harlow, are back in this pack. Last time around when that overtake was made, 1.3 seconds gained. They've been a bit calmer this lap around, but they've still lost 0.4 of a second, and Wayne Burke's about to lose the race lead because down the inside goes Brady Myers, and Burke does not fight that too hard because he tries to set up this exit. He's got a good run, closing a little bit, and there goes his run. It's all over in a cloud of Dunlop smoke, but he's able to reset a little bit because here comes another great opportunity out of the Variante Villeneuve chicane. Use all the exit curb, couldn't set the run up. So Brady Myers, he's going to lead this lap as we head to just 11.5 laps to go. But the two cars behind, well, they say hello to.
I hope you've got a glass of water next to you, Bo, because I think that you and I are going to have a bit of work to do in the next couple of laps because this is going to get very spicy. Brett Loxton, position 3, previously position 1, and looking to reclaim the lead after not having the best pit stop and losing out. He is now right on the heels and looking very intense on the back of Wayne Burke, who's been fighting with Brady Myers and allowed these two cars behind to catch back up and form the 4-car battle train that we have seen throughout this entire race. Only 3 guys out of this pack of 4 are going to get a piece of silverware, and at the moment, Suslan Harlow is the man who's been sitting in the wooden spoon position for quite a while. I'm sure he'll want to change that in the coming laps, but he's got quite a bit of work to do. As we just quickly go back now to Corey Preston, who's in a battle with Greg Sharp. He's got Mario Vlasic sandwiched in behind him as well, looking to go for a move up into the chicane at the end of the lap. So we go back to the lead, and Brett Loxton has a great run here. Not going to be enough into turn number 1 to make anything work. It's going to be very difficult for either of these guys. I can tell they all want to overtake each other, but they know that trying to go for the overtake could potentially open themselves up to lose a couple of positions, or even worse, lose their position and even lose the train.
Yeah, and that's the nightmare, because we did mention the draft can be pretty powerful around this circuit, and especially in a pack like this, if you did lose that spot, the only way you're really going to make that round back up is if these guys really start fighting hard, like Wayne Burke looks like he wants to start doing with the backup Brady Myers Falcon. No way through on this part of the circuit unless you're very bold into Aqua Minerale or even the very aggressive chicane as well, but for Brady, just not happening at the moment. He can't break away at all, and for Wayne Burke, no opportunities presenting themselves, but Brady so close to the grass on the mid part of that corner there, and if you get a wheel on the grass there, it is so easy to loop the car and say game over as well. So we're all just playing a little bit with fire at the moment, and the pack is so close that just a little moment, like you said, can mean so much in this battle pack when it comes to the 34th lap. But just settling down a little bit, but we know when it comes down to the front straight, once again, it will be anything but calm. As you can see there, Brett Loxton just getting a little bit of fresh air, just seeing what the greener pastures are out in second place. Not able to snatch that second place just yet, but just lighting himself up for another opportunity, because right now the drivers are all just sizing themselves up a little bit. Where is Brady's car strong? Where's Wayne's car strong? You know, just try to figure out where you can make a move happen. And for Wayne Burke, well, maybe a move can happen into turn one. He is closing. I'm not sure if it's going to be on, because Brady defends the inside. In the last few laps, they've all been pushing so hard. They've actually really been missing the first apex. This time around, they all meet that apex, which is good to see. But for Wayne Burke, I'm just a little worried for his car right now, as actually is Brett Loxton that time around that gets a bit of a sideways action. But the last few laps in particular, Wayne Burke has really been struggling with traction. Out of that corner in particular, the left-hander, the third corner of that first chicane, and well, that's a really good opportunity to set up and move into the second chicane, and if he doesn't have that in his arsenal, that could pay massive consequences come the end of the race.
Yeah, it's about setting up the, you know, there's a strategy to overtaking around here at Imola, and you're absolutely right. If there's something that you're just not able to quite get right, it really can affect how you go about making the overtakes around this track, if you're able to as well. And just a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, if you think that having the top four cars within 0.7 of a second after 45 minutes of racing is pretty cool, don't forget to leave us a big fat thumbs up on this video, and also subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network. And if you want to head over to SimSpeed TV and chuck us a subscribe over there, we've got plenty of other excellent racing on offer for you to see, including the Oceanic Endurance Championship, which was run on the weekend. Some excellent racing throughout that series, and many others on the SimSpeed TV network, as we just get a replay here between Brian Borg and Corey Preston. There was even Matt Morris getting a bit of a lockup and a spin all involved in that as well, and there was quite a bit going on there. So we've got Corey Preston up ahead with Brian Borg, and Matt Morris just locking himself up, and oh my goodness, that was very close for Matt Morris down the inside there, and kind of lucky he locked himself up and held himself to the inside of the circuit there. He continues on, but this battle up at the front rages on, and these cars, amazingly, all four of these cars are within 0.7 of a second, and it's starting to get dicey now, and this is exactly the kind of thing that Brady Myers needs to run away with this race, is an attack from Brett Loxton, and Wayne Burke really doesn't want this to happen. He wants to be on the rear of the TTL car up ahead. He doesn't want to have to look in the mirrors and worry about that big for Commodore behind him. He just wants to push himself forward, but Brett Loxton wants redemption. He wants to take back the lead of this race and get the win that he feels, I'm sure, he so rightly deserves. But now he's coming under pressure from Suslan Harlow as well. So it's just a cascading effect here, and the man with, you know, in the best position, I think, at the moment, would have to be Brady Myers. He's, you know, he might have to come under threat into turn one every now and then, but having those three guys tucked so closely in behind each other, and from them all being from different teams as well, it's they're not, you know, they're not really being all that polite to each other, and that can only help Brady, as we've got about 7 laps to run in this race.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned redemption for the likes of Brett Loxton as well, but think back to well over a year ago, if you've been watching the series for that long, when Brady Myers was still at Progression Racing Australia. He was so dominant on one of those races here at Imola. He was running away from the field comfortably, but I think it was like 6 or 7 laps to go. Blew an engine and he lost that race win. So for Brady Myers, he's always been quick here, but luck has always somehow turned against him in this race. So for Brady, he's been in this position before. He knows not to count his chickens before they've hatched. Right now you can see Wayne is starting to close up a little more as Jackson Suslan Harlow locks the front tyre up, an absolute treat. So that won't do the tyre temperatures any good, and loses a little bit of ground to Brett Loxton. But the way this pack is fighting, he'll be back onto the back of the Zuva racing car in the next half a lap probably. But these guys are all starting to take the life out of the rear tyres at the moment. And for Brady, he's just driving the car very straight, very square off the corners, which is what you need to do. Whereas Wayne and Brett in particular, you can see Brett once again just having a little bit of a moment there on traction. And Wayne in particular out of turn 3, just struggling so much. So that could really pay dividends for Brady Myers. But right now, he is being closed in on. And that is the closest that Wayne has been for the last 2 or 3 laps. So Brady does still have to be careful because he's not breaking away just yet.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that Brady's really got to just make sure that he keeps that gap as we just look at Corey Preston going down the inside of Greg Sharp there. He's just got to keep that gap at half a second if he can. I think at half a second he's just far enough away to prevent Wayne from really having too much of a keen interest in making an overtake down into turn 1. Although, you know, once we get down to maybe lap 32, 33, we might see the mindsets of these drivers change just a little bit, because it's very, I mean, we've had some absolutely fantastic racing, especially in the iRacing V8 Supercars official series, but it is quite unusual to see so many cars within such a tight gap at the end of such a long race. As I said just before, we've been racing now for 50 minutes and all 4 of these cars are within 1 second of each other. And I mean, really, any of these guys, you could flick a light switch, one thing could happen, and any of these guys could take race victory today. And it's going to be very interesting to see who does walk away with it in the end. I'm not sure. I'm not much of a betting man to begin with, but I had to say, if I had to put money on someone, I'm probably going to put it on Wayne Burke for now. I think he really wants this win. It's been a while since he's had a win in this series. He's got a lot of good speed in that car. He just needs to keep it under control a little bit better. But I think that Brett Loxton, that car just hasn't had the absolute pace that's needed to really lead this race. We saw it, earlier on, but we felt that a lot of these guys were saving, as was shown in the pit stop. So I just don't think that Brett Loxton has the absolute pace of this car. I think that Wayne Burke has the tenacity to get past Brady in these later stages of this race.
Yeah, absolutely he does, and he's got a good opportunity now, but I'm not sure he's going to take it. It's still quite a long way to go to the end of the race. 6 laps to go, and Brady's none the wiser to that move up the inside and defends it, and nothing goes on through there as Jackson Susan Harlow just gets a little bit too deep through that section. But we'll see how Wayne goes through that section. He got the car squared up okay, so maybe his tyre issues that he had at the start of this second phase of the race have just calmed down a little bit, but he's just not quite able to get to the back of Brady consistently enough at the moment. There are some laps he has a chance, but then the next few laps he's just completely off. So Wayne Burke might be a case next time around. The next time an opportunity presents itself, he might just have to commit to it. But the way these guys, we've all seen these guys come down to a last lap, fight for the win. We've all seen them in that kind of scrap. So the way they all tend to fight, I'm not even counting Brenton Hobson out for a race win right now. And he's in a battle with Marlon McMullen. Those two still continuing their fight. But, I mean, these 4 guys up front, this is going to be a cracking show if the cards fall our way, which at the moment, I have to say, I think they just might. Because last time around, 0.2 of a second, Wayne Burke was quicker than Brady.
Yeah, he's looking pretty strong. And amazingly, the track, amazingly may be too strong a word, but the track temperature has not changed at all since we started this race. And Jack Boyd, we're just watching on screen. Unfortunately, a slowdown for him puts him back into 8th position behind Michael Taliantich. but the track conditions have virtually changed nil since we started this race. So that low track temperature is really going to allow these guys to control their tire temperatures a little bit better. We have seen quite a few of these guys sliding around quite a lot, and even if they just go, you know, calm down for a lap or two, that might be enough to just reset their tire temps to a point where the car's not so, you know, difficult to control and it's not sliding around so much. But you know, these V8 supercars are very difficult to control and manage everything, and just, you know, very slight application too much of the throttle, you spin the rear wheels up, and then you have to spend, you know, 3/4 of a lap to a lap trying to just recover from that one tiny mistake. So very difficult. And it actually seems like Brady's just pulled out a little bit of a gap on Wayne here now.
Yeah, and I think a little bit of that is because me and the director were just talking in the background for a little bit there, and we actually noticed that into turn 1, Wayne is still fuel saving just a tiny bit. So I wonder just how short on fuel he might have gone that pit stop to try and get an edge, because out of the top 4 cars, he does have the shortest pit stop by 1.2 seconds over Brady, who was the next quickest. And Jay Kennedy, our director, has just said that his punt is that that Wayne's going to be pretty comfortable just to stay in second for most of this last phase of the race. But then with last 2 laps to go, he's going to try and make something happen and go for that race lead, which is a pretty good shout, it has to be said. And Wayne just probably making sure he's got the fuel to attack come the end of this race, because once again, he's close-ish here, but he's nowhere near close enough to make a move. And he knows that he's a smart racer, so he knows on that penultimate lap, he has to at least be right on the rear bumper of that TTL Esports car.
Yeah, and you know, these are definitely things that you think about when you're in the car, you're driving, you're in this sort of situation. Definitely all factors that you take into consideration if you have the, you know, the spare brain power to do so. But as you said, Wayne is a very experienced racer. He's been through all this before, and you know, he did go the longest on the first stint, have the shortest pit stop, so he could very well be saving himself up for one final explosive attack in the penultimate laps of this race, which we are very close to seeing, as all 4 of these cars, the gap between all 4 of them has just drifted out to 1.4 seconds now. Still an incredibly tight margin after such a long period of racing here at Imola. It certainly has not disappointed as we suspected that it wouldn't. And we will have to see who does come out on top.
No, I don't think Imola really ever fails to produce a good race. Every time we come here, it's one we always circle on the calendar and say that's going to be a good race, because you can see as they go through the chicane that Wayne Burke, I said he had to be closer to the TTL Esports car, and he is doing just that. The issue is that he did just lose a little bit of ground there coming out of the chicane, and that car of Brady Myers managed to get the traction down so nicely and just pull away a little bit more. And maybe that is the strengths and weaknesses of these 2 cars, that whilst Wayne's car is a lot quicker up the first part of the lap, Brady can really attack those curbs. And right now that is paying big dividends, because if you want to pull away on one part of the circuit, it's before this main straight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got to make sure that you're at least, you know, if you've got a 3 to 4 10-second gap on the entry into this straight here, then you're pretty much golden, unless you're carrying some sort of damage or something like that. So if Brady can just maintain that gap, he will do so. But as you said, Brett, Wayne just coming out of that final chicane section, he has been struggling to put down the power a lot through there. It wasn't just the last lap. It's been the last 3 or 4 laps previously. He's been struggling in that one particular area. And in my opinion, that exit is one of the most critical components to getting the overtake done on the main straight, because you have to really close into that hard braking zone down the hill. And all you really need to do is just make sure that you're there through the double left-hander and get a clean exit, and you can pretty much consider the position yours. So he's just really got to tighten up that little part. So here we come. We'll see if he's able to do it better this time as he comes out. This is the chicane I was talking about here. So just looking to see how Wayne gets on the power as he comes out of that corner there. And it did seem actually was significantly better that time. You can already see he's actually gaining on Brady rather than falling away from him. So he needs to be nice and committed here on the brakes, which he is. You can see that physically as they start to tighten up, keeps the gap through the first left-hander, keeps the gap through the second left-hander, and gets a good exit. So maybe here is, we said 3 to 4 tenths, and you're golden. It's pretty much bang on 4 as they came out the final corner. It's now down to 2, and I don't think it's going to be enough. Maybe Wayne's not thinking the same. Brady's thinking maybe. Oh, that's very close between the two of them. And Wayne was definitely thinking about it, and he is in attack mode. He is now going to go for any opportunity. Brady got a very poor run out of the third corner there, and that's going to maybe open something up for Wayne Burke as they come through the chicane into the last 2 laps now. Down into the hairpin. Is he going to go for the late move? Round the outside on the brakes deep. That is a fantastic move for Wayne Burke if he can make that stick. But unfortunately for him, there is just a little bit too little overlap to that. Made that work, and now Brett Loxton's going to go round the outside. But he's going to get held out to dry, and Wayne Burke is going to cut back in. And that was some very, very unique driving there from Wayne Burke. And looking for
Wayne Burke on the inside! A massive Why is there contact? They're still door banging! And out goes Wayne Burke! This is brilliant to Brett Loxton! Brett Loxton comes through out of nowhere, an absolute Bradbury! And out of nowhere in second place is Brady Myers. His car doesn't look in that great of shape. Jay, we're going to need more than one modem simulation replay.
Oh my gosh!
Give us
That
all
was
the replays you've got.
incredible.
That was... Alright, let's try and calm down for a second and try and see what's happened now. Massive move up the inside by Wayne Burke. Very opportunistic. And that was an awkward situation there for Brady Myers. Just comes across so sharp and just completely spins the one performance racing car. And I don't know about you, Zach, but for me, I don't feel like there was a gap there for Wayne Burke's car.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. It's the last couple of laps, and it was a very bold move. I think that if they hadn't have made that second contact, which I'm not going to put blame on either driver for, because, you know, that's racing. I mean, there's a bit of it. Yeah. That's a tough one to call. Look, it was good, hard racing. And Brady Myers is out of the race. He's been disqualified for too many incidents.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Out of nowhere, it's all gone wrong for Brady. He led the penultimate lap on course to win the race. He's not even going to finish in the top 20 anymore. That is he's going to finish 20th, sorry. That is a complete nightmare for Brady. I'll tell you who it's not a nightmare for. Brett Loxton, out of nowhere, he was attacking around the outside of Piratella, trying to make a move for second. He's come out of the Aqua Minerale section in the lead with a 2-second buffer, now 3-second buffer over Jackson Suzlin Harlow, who has run 4th all race long for Jackson, so he's promoted up to second. The field has been completely thrown on its head, but for Brett Loxton, it's worked out absolutely perfectly. He led from pole position at the start of the race. He was the one that were all fuel saving behinds. He was the one that had to push through all the air at the start and make it all the hard way through the race, but he's going to round the final corner on the 34th lap, and he is going to put his stamp on round number 11 of the Monday night V8 Supercar Strength of Field in what is going to go down as an absolute classic for Brett Loxton from Zuva Racing. A great drive from him in the end. Jackson Suzlin Harlow in car number 2 comes home second with a bonnetless Ford Falcon, and Wayne Burke, well, he did everything he could for the race win, and it wasn't enough. And Marlon McMullen, well, his fuel tank wasn't enough. He's going to coast home to 5th place. Of course, Brenton Hobson promoted to 4th as well. A great result for him. But Zach, that final 2 laps was something else.
Oh my, I don't even know what to say. That was pretty full on. Real shame that all 4 of those guys didn't come out on the other side, and also a real shame that Suzlin Harlow couldn't get to the right-hand side of the track fast enough, because I'd suspect that if he had kept the throttle in it and just pulled to the right, he may have actually had the momentum to jump all 3 of those guys there, as there's just a last little final scrap for 13th, 14th, and 15th, and Mitchell McLeod will come home on the tail end of that scrap. for him. Steve Jansen coming across the line behind Matt Stratford there. And, well, they're actually going to, they're going to get a couple of positions, actually, because been some more. Blake Purdy ran out of fuel on the front straight, and also Brady Myers being DQ'd on the final lap as well promotes everyone a further 2 positions. So we will go to our results now, and it is Brett Loxton for Zuva Racing, who I'm sure is sitting in his simulator at home going, I can't believe it. Absolutely fantastic to Brett, and a great race from him. Jackson Suslan Harlow, a little bit quiet, sitting at the back of the pack, and maybe a bit lackluster, but still position number 2. A good result for him in tonight's race. And Wayne Burke, well, from hero to not quite 0, but a 0 + 3 for Wayne Burke, and a piece of silverware to go with it for this evening's racing. Almost had the top spot, but a little bit too bold, a little late for Wayne. Brenton Hobson, he worked himself up into 4th position for Synergy Sim Racing. Great result for him. Marlon McMullen comes home in position number 5, ahead of Michael Taliancic, who had a quiet but progressive race, moving himself up into 6th position from 9th. Jack Boyd, unfortunate for him, this was a really good day for him to get some solid championship points on the board. A couple of mistakes mean that he finishes in 7th. Corey Preston surprisingly finishes 8th after all of the drama that he had throughout that race. We had Greg Sharp in 9th position. Good to see Greg getting a top 10 in a Monday night strength of field race. And Matt Morris will round out the top 10 for you.
Absolutely, and Mario Vlasic comes home just behind a top 10 finish in position number 11, with a Zach Baker bringing it home in position number 12. Brian Borg, Damian Johnston, and Mitch McLeod would be your top 15, and that fight Mitch McLeod was in was a very close one, with those guys all within half a second. 16th would go to Matt Stratford, with Steve Jansen bringing it home in 17th, Mihail Ladashov in 18th, and, well, Brady Myers will get classified in 19th, so it wasn't quite 20th, but it could have also been the race win. So for Brady, a bit of a nightmare there. Blake Purdy run out of fuel on the front straight on the very last lap, with Job Stewart, Kai Allen, and Dominic Ferraris all being retirements from this race. But Zach, once again, Imola just completely puts it on, and another great race, one that will definitely go down as one to remember.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had such a fantastic race last week as well at Sebring. The action was just absolutely relentless. And while the action this week was a little more relenting, that battle that we saw between the top 4 guys all throughout that race was absolutely incredible. And unfortunate to see 2 of those guys come unstuck at the end, but it was very tight between all 4 of those guys, and there was absolutely no doubt from us, I think, that they were all going to be putting it on the line with a couple laps to go. So, you know, that's what happens when the adrenaline comes through, and you know, you start making moves that are very much pushing the limits of the capability of any driver. But it was very entertaining, and was definitely glad to be a part of it this evening.
Absolutely, and well, on a little bit of a sadder note, of course, we're actually not going to be going back to Imola for the official series for the rest of the year. But if you do want a bit, yeah, exactly. But if you do want a little bit more Imola action later in the year, of course, we do have one of the V8 Supercars online Premier Series Enduro rounds. So that should be a great show at Imola, as it always is. But from us at SimSpeed, we are done for this Monday night. But tomorrow night, well, we're going to be going a lot more sideways than Wayne Burke was at turn 3, because it is, of course, the Australian Sprint Car Series, and that should be another absolute classic of a race. We've seen some great racing in that series. How will this next round go on? And of course, on Friday, the Australian Online Sim Racing Championship in those beautiful cars we saw here tonight. That should be another great race at all. But on behalf of the team of Zach Hanlon and Jay Kennedy, thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you next time. This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to him.
Oh my god! Oh, big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna
guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go.
Oh no!
That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?